Ray Taliaferro was a San Francisco radio legend. I listened to him a lot when I lived in Sacramento and the San Francisco Bay Area. KGO was the station, and he was my all-time favorite radio host. Sadly, he was found dead in 2018. What I want to do is pay tribute to Ray because he was the most influential radio person in my life. And I called in several times on his show. The first time I ever heard him was while I was working overnight on the radio in Sacramento on KWOD. And it was the San Francisco earthquake. I switched the dial while a song was playing so I could get an update on the earthquake, and it was Ray's voice. I started listening to him regularly in late 90 and early 91 when the Gulf War broke out, because I didn't support that war, but all I was getting from regular media was just pro-war propaganda. And I'm just not for war. I don't like any of the wars. I'm for peace. So I want to read a quote here from Ray from one of his shows. He said, "It doesn't take much leadership to promote war. It's easy to promote war. It takes a hell of a lot of leadership to promote peace." And that is one of the greatest things I've ever heard on radio. So Ray started in San Francisco on the air at KNEW in Oakland in 1967. 10 years later, he was hired by KGO in San Francisco. He had also worked as a TV news anchor on KRON. He also held several positions in community service, such as he was the president of the NAACP in San Francisco from 1968 to 1971. He was head of the San Francisco Arts Commission, and he also raised millions of dollars along with Ron Owens from KGO for the Leukemia Society of America. So he was more than just a voice on the radio, and that's why I respect him so much. He cared about his community. He cared so much about San Francisco. And to me, when I think of San Francisco, his voice is the first thing that comes to mind. So I want to pay tribute to Ray with a clip from 2002 in which I called in and we had a conversation about alternative energy.
What is your solution? Well, hey, I have my solution. I've been talking about my solution, as the gentleman said, for decades. For 30 years, I've been beating this drum of using alternative sources to fossil fuels for the energizing of our society. And not just me, obviously, a whole lot of people. And indeed, a whole lot of people do use alternative sources of energy to a great degree in their lives. And that's wonderful. But more of us need to do that. I tell you, this is where we really have alternatives here, you see. We really have an option to war. What's the option to war? An energy revolution. You want to get involved in a movement? Join the energy revolution. And believe me, that revolution can be started and its goals reached very quickly. Very quickly. So I'm very I'm just very, very interested and very energized, quite frankly, in pursuing it. And we can do it. You know, politicians, they love to listen to talk programs because they get ideas. They hear us saying, hey, this is the answer to going to war. We don't need to go to war in order to get that oil. What we need to do is to have a revolution in this country, bloodless, of course, that will bring about massive use of the energy technologies that we know work. That's what we need to do. Alex in Orinda, you're on KGO Ray Taliaferro. Good morning.
Good morning, Ray. I'm glad you're talking about alternative energy, which is very interesting to me. It's my understanding that for several years, a lot of people believed that oil was going to run out by the year 2040, but I think scientists have revised that theory, and they now believe that there's hundreds of years worth of oil left, but the cost of drilling for oil is going to become too expensive sometime between the years 2010 and 2040. And in other words, they'll have to drill so deep that it won't be worth it anymore.
It won't be cost effective.
Exactly. So
we ought to get started on the alternatives now.
Yeah, there's a certain urgency I think we all have to face here because, you know, it would have been nice if Carter were elected to a second term because I think it would be a completely different world now. You know,
very different.
Reagan completely got rid of Carter's alternative energy program, and you know, to me that's the worst thing Reagan did. Maybe it's not the worst.
It's one of them, though.
One of them.
Yeah. No, your points your point is very well taken, and you're right. At some point, all these oil companies in the United States of America and like BP around the world, they are going to try to opt out in order to lock on to something that is going to be that is going to be profitable to them. It's not going to be profitable, as you point out, in the very near term to continue to produce that oil. They just want to rake it up and rake in the dough now so that they can, you know, have a gay old time of it in their outer years when they don't have to worry about digging up that oil. But what we as a society have to be concerned about is at what price?